Okay.
Where they had to clutch each other, and Kirk actually... did you notice he actually kind of caressed his own back a little bit?
I love
He's
you.
like,
angry
oh,
half."
this feels so right, because he's so full of himself. He really wants to... I just listened to Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, who does this bit on pregnancy. He's like, yeah, my wife is pregnant. You know what? I could never do that because I don't have a uterus. But seriously, I could never have a baby. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't have sex with a man. Unless, of course, the man looked like me. That would be some hot Jim on Jim action. And that's totally what Jim Kirk was thinking right now.
Yeah, maybe that's the case.
But I'm glad you noticed that as well. I also noticed the first instance that I could tell of Spock just being really kind of bad vibey to Bones when Bones said something like, I think he may have died of shock, the little animal they tested it out on. And then Spock says, for once I agree with you, Doctor. Just kind of this spiteful little, I hate agreeing with you, you stupid, emotional human being, but for once I agree with you, Doctor. You're like, I'm completely better than you kind of thing.
Well, I think that mellows out throughout the season. It becomes much more of a kind of bemused, you silly humans and your crazy non-logical approach, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah, one thing you may have noticed, I don't know if you noticed this, but did you notice who wrote this episode?
No, The Enemy Within? No.
Richard Matheson.
Good.
Whom I think wrote I Am Legend, the original I Am Legend.
Oh, did he? I don't know. When I hear Matheson, I think of the governor of Utah. But I doubt they're related, so... Alrighty.
Okay, other cool stuff in this one. The whole episode opens up with Captain's log. Unknown to any of us at the time, there's an evil duplicate of me. which is really funny. Like, we don't know this right now.
Yeah.
But right now there's an evil me going around.
Yeah, it's his.
I guess he kind of had to catch up on some of his captain's logs, and so he retroactively, put it in where it was supposed to go.
Backdating his own captain logs.
And also, the evil Kirk pretty much assaults and pretty much sexually assaults Yeoman Janice Rand.
Yes, but you also get the opinion that if the normal Kirk had simply approached Yeoman and asked her if they wanted to be more than friends, she was ready to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, you do possibly.
You also you gotta wonder. I'm sorry. You gotta wonder how much time it takes her to do that hair, because that's the craziest. I don't know, lattice pie crust weave at the top of her head I've ever seen.
Do you think maybe
it's a wig?
Well, she probably kind of they have like hair dryers.
Yeah.
This is the machine I imagine that does it. It's like a hair dryer, but it's like a transporter.
Okay.
And so she has a preset setting where her hair, the transporter locks on to all elements of her hair.
Yeah.
And it just transports the hair. It just beams the hair however it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
In this little hair dryer thing. That's probably what they use in the future.
That's probably the case. We can hope so.
Oh, Maria brings up something good. It was probably a wig. Well, maybe that too.
I'm sure that for the purposes of props, it's a wig. But in the future, do people feel impressed to walk around in wigs? I would like to think that since they can generate food out of nothing, maybe she just sticks her head in the generator and generates her hairstyle.
Yeah, there you go.
So anyway.
And okay, but what I meant to say about that is, it wasn't just evil Kirk that assaulted her. It was an aspect of Kirk.
Yeah.
Right.
A part of Kirk yeah.
Yeah, and so don't you imagine? Would it even be possible to have a working relationship after something like that happens, even if everything's resolved?
Yeah.
Like, it would be impossible. You'd pretty much have to. But they're out in space. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just quit your job.
She would always know
and not see that person again.
She would always know that there's a part of Kirk that wants her that way, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why.
And
Go ahead.
Well, people of the future, since weird stuff like that happens all the time, since there are mind readers in the future, and there are split personalities in the future, since it's like much more of an open book than it is now, I guess people just have to get used to that.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the case. So, all right, John, let's see. We are only up to episode number 6, but it's a real good one. Mud's women, and there's a real moral lesson in this episode. And the moral lesson...
Oh yeah, Mud's women is... I like Mud's women.
Yeah, the moral lesson is if you simply believe in yourself, you'll be physically beautiful.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how she transforms from hag to beautiful woman at the end with just her confidence.
Okay, just really quickly, let's set it up for people who haven't seen it. They pick up this guy, and his cargo is 3 women that are pretty much mail order brides.
Yes.
And he's been feeding them these really strange drugs, and these are like drugs that are unlike any drugs that are in the history of anything, in that the drugs don't affect the person who takes them, but the drugs affect everyone around the person who takes them. And so if this woman takes drugs, she will be more attractive for whatever reason people find her attractive. So if you're like one of those guys who really loves really smart women, then she'll be smarter. If you're a guy who's really turned on by really dumb women, then I imagine she'll also be dumber, right?
But don't they see themselves as... in the mirror, can they tell the difference of themselves when the drug is worn off? Is it because of the way they view themselves as well?
I guess that's kind of the point of the believe in yourself moral. I guess they kind of said that some of the drugs have a kind of a placebo effect because they actually give one of the women a placebo.
Yeah,
and this is what I really don't understand because she hates the fact that she's a mail order bride.
Yeah.
She hates her life. She just hates being treated like an object, and so she's starting to get old. She's starting to look a little homely, and so she takes the drug, she pops it in her mouth, and says, and then she changes before our eyes. Is this what you want? Someone who's vapid, someone who's vain and useless, someone just for your own pleasure, someone you can't talk to. And then they're like, why, this was just a placebo. You look this way because you believe in yourself. And so really what they're saying is, you believe yourself to be vain and useless. And that's how you're able to actually transform yourself. Didn't make any sense. As a moral, as like, the moral of the story is believing in yourself. She was disgusted with the way she was presenting herself.
Yeah.
This whole time. And so that made absolutely no sense at all, even though it was a pretty interesting episode.
Yeah, I guess one of the many paradoxes in Star Trek that keeps, and I don't know if it did you, but probably keeps lots of young nerds up at night trying to figure out exactly what was supposed to be going on.
Yeah.
So,
I suppose so. Now, it's kind of relatable, it fits well with puberty, because puberty was an interesting time for me. Let me just talk about that just a little bit, because I remember as a little kid thinking how strange it was that men loved, like, lusting after women so much. And I kind of thought in my kind of smart attitude that, like, you know what, if it wasn't so cultural, that's what you did, then I'm sure that has nothing to do with anything. So, what did you say? John is talking. You just typed something to me.
No, just keep talking. We're just keep talking. No, I think I agree. I think there was a period where you think, what's the big deal? But then,
what's the big deal? And then it happens, and you kind of turn into an idiot a little bit.
Yeah.
and you hear, like, McCoy and Scotty are talking about that, and they're just completely, their tongues are hanging out over these women.
Yeah.
And they're just looking at each other, and they're like, we are totally transfixed, and I just don't understand why. They're just completely logically acknowledging this lust that's taking over them, and like, this is kind of strange. And that's exactly how I felt at that time. Like, why do I feel, this makes me mad that I don't have this kind of control.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they were.
Yep. So they just went through puberty again real fast.
Yep. So, have you encountered Mud again? I think we encounter Mud in a later episode.
In the first season, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's in the first season.
Okay.
So
Alrighty.
I wasn't sure if you'd come across him in the second. I don't know which season he's in, and I can't remember what. Oh, I do kind of remember that episode.
Okay.
I don't think it's as good as this one. Oh well. Anything else you want to say about Mud's Women?
No, but I think it's interesting that the episode immediately after Mud's Women is called "What Little Girls Are Made Of." So.
Which I was just watching it before you called. I was just watching that.
Okay. Now I'd have to say, of all the Star Trek ladies in the first season, that probably the most attractive is in this episode.
You know what? Of the ones I've seen, I think I'll agree with you. I don't. What's the actress's name? What else has she done?
Oh, I have no idea. The brunette robot, right?
Yeah, the brunette robot that they find on this. They go down to this. Kirk goes down and he finds this mad scientist creating robots, and he's like, these should replace the humanity because they're not burdened by emotions, pretty much. Isn't that kind of the gist of it?
Yes. And then the shocking conclusion: the Doctor is a robot too.
He's a robot.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Everyone's a robot.
Yeah.
But going back to that girl, wasn't that the goofiest outfit? It was like,
yeah.
It was like overall halter.
Yeah.
It was an overall halter top.
Yeah.
Like a pant halter set. It's like all onesie pant halter, and it was just bizarre. And obviously, she didn't mind wearing something so ridiculous because she's a robot. She's programmed to accept that.
Yeah. What does she care? However, on the other hand, I had the pleasure of watching that episode with my wife, and she gave me lots of interesting looks every time that character came on screen. Well, what can you do?
Did she have
it's
to,
the
like,
future.
Did she physically close your jaw at certain points?
No, no. But now the great part of this episode, right, is that Kirk overcomes the cold logic of the robots by trying to educate that said brunette robot about love. Correct?
Yes.
And
correct.
Yeah, she starts wondering.
He teaches her about love, and it malfunctions her.
Yeah, that's right. Crappy robots can't understand love, and so if you want to defeat a robot, you give him a big fat kiss.
That's right. One interesting scene I thought was really great was he makes an android duplicate of Kirk, who's exactly like Kirk, but he's a robot.
Yeah.
And the real Kirk, they're all sitting at the dinner table, both different Kirks, and the real Kirk gets the upper hand, and he physically takes on the mad scientist. And I think the writers, it could have been a technical issue in filming, because it would have been hard to film two William Shatners at the same time.
Yeah.
But it didn't show what the android's Kirk's response to that would have been. Because if it is an android exactly like Kirk, he would have felt exactly like Kirk would have about, what this guy is saying and the existence of androids, and he probably couldn't argue with himself, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I don't know.
But anyway, that's up for supposition because they didn't bother filming it, which is lame.
All right.
But it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Ultimately, when they found out that guy was a robot, they're like, prove that you're human, and he couldn't do anything to prove that he was human, because he couldn't love.
Yeah.
Which I guess is the whole point.
Let's be honest. Robots can never replace humans, at least until we turn on Skynet, and then it's.
That's true.
Yeah. So.
One really annoying thing about this episode, though, is it's 100 years later when we get to Next Generation, and Data, and I mean, you know enough about Star Trek to know who Data is, right?
Yeah.
He's like the epitome of androids, but it's 100 years later, and the android that this guy was just making, like by the hundreds in this little lab, are way better than the one-of-a-kind Data of the whole next century. And it's supposed to be way more advanced than 100 years later and everything. A lot of crazier things happened in the first season of the original series of Star Trek than hundreds of years later, where most Star Trek happens, with Next Generation and Voyager and Deep Space Nine and stuff like that.
Yeah. You would think that they would just learn their lessons, and I don't know, John. Data should have been a better robot, because like you said, in the hundreds of years before, they were all sorts better than Data, and now we're stuck with crappy Data. Crappy
right.
Data.
Okay, I think we have about 10 minutes left of this. We're not going to get through the first season, are we?
No, we're not. 10 minutes left of what? Of the Ustream or of the GarageBand?
I think GarageBand has a limit on about 55 minutes or so. You'll have to watch it because you're doing your GarageBand thing.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Okay, you know what? The next 2 episodes are 2 episodes I haven't seen. Do you want to... This might be really quick, if you want to talk about them really quick.
Yeah, okay. Miri, so this is an episode where... basically, John, this kind of reminds me of Omega Man, or whichever variant of Omega Man you like. So Kirk and a landing party end up on the planet, which kind of looks... Oh, I don't want to... Like Main Street, USA, but it's a ghost town, right? It's deserted. And then you see this guy who's all covered with yucky stuff, and he dies as he's crying about a tricycle that's broken, or something that's broken. And so what we find is that on this planet, when the kids reach puberty, they contract this disease and they die. That's no good. And you also learn that since this landing party are all adults, pretty soon they're going to get the same disease and they're going to die. They do find one girl named Miri who sympathizes with them because Kirk's able to convince her that pretty soon the disease is going to happen to her too. And but of course, this girl, who's supposed to be like 14, she falls in love with Kirk. And... you just can't date a 14-year-old even if you are hundreds of years in the future. It just doesn't work that way. And I think this girl, at some point in the show, sees Kirk interacting with one of the female lieutenants, and she gets jealous. And all these kids gang up and try to kill Kirk, but Kirk, with his stunning...
Does he do some flying leg kicks on these kids?
I don't know. It's actually, once you get into the stuff with all the kids, it's really annoying. And there's a couple of these kids that look really freaky. I don't know where they dig up these kids, or if they have...
You probably saw, is Charlie X, in the background.
Yeah, I don't know, but...
He's the leader of these kids, and no!
Yeah, some of these kids look like they've been hit with boards or something. I don't know.
So is it a recent disease then, or how are these kids reproducing?
They're not reproducing, but they're aging at an extremely slow rate.
Okay.
So that's why they've been there for so long. Yeah, they're aging really slowly. And Kirk and the Star Trek people have all found a cure for it, and they just have to convince the kids that that's the way to go. And of course, they're able to. I think what happens is they got the communicators and the kids steal them, and they can't finish the cure without the communicators to link whatever data up to the central computer. So they gotta talk some sense into these kids, and they're able to save McCoy's life just in time, and everyone else and all the kids, and it's happy times. Not a great episode, but I mean it felt a whole lot like the I Am Legend, I guess. So.
And that's interesting. Okay. Does you liked I Am Legend, right?
I have not seen it. I have only seen Omega Man, which you know my feelings about that film.
Yeah, I liked I Am Legend. I thought it wasn't. They didn't try to modernize it so much. It was kind of moody.
Okay.
And it was actually it was almost more thoughtful than Omega Man.
Okay.
In fact, I might say it was more thoughtful. Omega Man was kind of the action one.
Yeah, you don't need to think when you're watching Charlton Heston. It's all testosterone.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful testosterone. Speaking of Heston, are you starting to feel about how wonderful a sight that would be to see Shatner and Heston battle to the death?
That would be something. That would be akin to watching Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris fight it out in the Coliseum.
Yep. Yeah, we'll have to, if we get powerful enough, I'd like to organize that, because, they're both still alive, right?
Yeah.
And, they're both pretty old, but I would pay $700 to see it.
Well, it's a fine offer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. Episode 9, The Dagger of the Mind. So what? This guy somehow manages to get beamed up to the ship from a penal colony, and he's crazy.